let's go crazy and start with the prologue, shall we? This is the one where I wanted to get Leonard's voice throughout the book, and so I start in the room with him, end in the room with him, and there are various conversations that are woven kind of like a sort of one-man Greek chorus throughout here. He is a courtly man, elegant with old-world manners. He bows when he meets you, stands when you leave, makes sure you're comfortable and makes no mention of the fact that it's not. The discreet stroking of the Greek worry beads he carries in his pocket give the game away. By inclination he is a private man, rather shy, but if probing is required he'll put his feet in the stirrups with dignity and humour. He chooses his words carefully, like a poet or a politician, with a habit of precision, an ear for their sound, and a talent and a taste for deflection and mystery. He is always like smoke and mirrors. And yet there's something conspiratorial in the way he talks, as there is when he sings, as if he were imparting an intimate secret. He's a trim man, there's no excess to him at all, and smaller than you might think, ship-shape. You imagine he wouldn't find it hard to wear a uniform. Right now he's wearing a suit. It is dark, pinstripe, double-breasted, and if it's off the rack, it doesn't look it. Darling, says Leonard, I was born in a suit. The chauffeur turned off the main road by the synagogue, which took up most of the block, and we headed past the Protestant church on the opposite corner and up the hill. In the back of the car was a woman, 27 years old, attractive, strong features, stylishly dressed, and her newborn baby son. The streets they passed were handsome and well appointed, the trees arranged just so. Big houses of brick and stone you might have thought would collapse under the sheer weight of their self-importance appeared to float effortlessly up the slopes. Around halfway up, the driver took a side road and stopped outside a house on the end of the street. 599 Belmont Avenue was large, solid and formal-looking, English in style, its dark bricks softened by a white framed veranda at the front, and at the back by Murray Hill Park, 14 acres of lawn, trees and flower beds, with a sweeping view of the St. Lawrence River to one side, and on the other downtown Montreal. The chauffeur stepped out the car and opened the rear door, and Leonard was carried up the white front steps into his family home. Leonard Cohen was born on September the 21st, happy birthday, 1934, in the Royal Victoria Hospital, a grey stone pile in Westmount, an affluent neighbour of Montreal, Canada. According to the records, it was 6:45 on a Friday morning. According to history, it was halfway between the Great Depression and World War II. Counting backward, Leonard was conceived between the end of Hanukkah and Christmas Day, during one of the subarctic winters his hometown managed to deliver with both consistency and brio. He was raised in a house of suits. Nathan Cohen, his father, was a prosperous Canadian Jew with a high-end clothing business. The Friedman Company was known for its formal wear, and Nathan liked to dress formally, even on informal occasions. There's some lovely snapshots he gave me from his childhood of like family vacations on the beach. Everybody's in swimsuits and there's Dad in his suit. In suits as in houses, he favoured the formal English style, which he wore with spats and tempered with a boutonniere, and when his bad health made it necessary, with a silver cane. Masha Cohen, Leonard's mother, was 16 years younger than her husband, a Russian Jew, a rabbi's daughter, and a recent immigrant to Canada. She and Nathan had married long after her arrival in Montreal in 1927. 2 years later, she gave birth to the first of their two children, Leonard's sister, Esther. Early photographs of Nathan and Masha show him to be square-faced, square-shouldered, a stocky man. Masha, slimmer and a head taller, is in contrast all circles and slopes. The expressions on her face is both girlish and regal, while Nathan's is rigid and taciturn. Even where there's not the required camera pose for the head of a household at that time, Nathan was certainly more reserved and more anglicized than his warm, emotional Russian wife. As a baby, Leonard, plump and compact, also square-faced, was the image of his father. But as he grew, he took on his mother's heart-shaped face, thick wavy hair, and deep, dark, sloping eyes. From his father he got his height, his tidiness, his decency, and his love of suits. From his mother he inherited charisma, melancholy, and music. Masha always sang as she went about the house, in Russian and Yiddish more than in English, the sentimental old folk songs she had learned in Lithuania as a child. In a good contralto voice to imaginary violins, Masha would sing herself from joy to melancholy and back again. Chekhovian is how Leonard described his mother. She wept and laughed deeply, one emotion following the other in quick succession. Masha was not a nostalgic woman. She didn't talk much about the country she had left, but she carried her past in songs. The residents of Westmount were well-to-do, upper-middle-class Protestant English Canadians and second or third generation Canadian Jews. In a city that was all about division and separation, the Jews and Protestants had been filed together on the simple grounds of being neither French nor Catholic. Before the Quiet Revolution in Quebec in the 60s, and before French became the sole official language of the province, the only French in Westmount were the domestic help. The Cohens had a maid, they had a chauffeur too. Basically, he kind of went through his childhood without showing any kind of disturbing signs of misery or genius, you know. He kind of polished his shoes, put them under the bed, did everything that was required of him, went to Hebrew school, went to regular school, didn't excel at anything in particular. And the major defining moment of his childhood was when he was 9 years old and his father died. His father had some kind of injury or illness that he got after being in World War I. Nobody really knew about it, nobody, including Leonard, could give much information on that. None of the papers and archives that I searched gave me any evidence, but quite often he would have to stay home from work, and it was probably one of the reasons that he did not carry on the family tradition, the father, of being president of the synagogue that had been founded by his own grandfather. But Leonard's grandfather died, and something very kind of significant happened at that point. Leonard wrote his first thing, other than what you have to write in school. He claims not to remember what it is. And he wrote this on a piece of paper, folded it up into tiny pieces, and went to his parents' bedroom and took one of his father's bow ties out of a drawer. And he slashed it open with a knife and put this folded up paper in it and sewed it. Leonard has domestic skills. And sewed it back together again and buried it in the garden in his own secret ceremony. And now he kind of somewhat makes light of it. You know, it's almost like one of those apocryphal Leonard Cohen stories. He says sometimes that he's still searching for that lost paper. He also said that he didn't cry when his father died, though he wrote about it in several short stories that I found in his archives that weren't printed. So back then it was something he was working out in a literary way. At that time he wasn't playing any music, so that really didn't come into play at that point. But, you know, it was one of those very significant things. He said he didn't cry, but he was crying in his words and his songs.